So this is an example week to give you an idea for 2 questions for each type of thing that we're doing. Question 1, 10% of 40, nice and straightforward. 10% of 40 is equal to 40 divided by 10, which is just £4. That's the sort of working out I'd like to see. Question 2. If I find 10% of 80, that's going to be £8. If I find 5% of 80, that's going to be £4. I could use 50% of 80, which is £40. Now, 55% is just going to be the 50% plus the 5%. So that's going to be these two added together, which is £44. Question 3. I'm factorizing. I'm looking for common factors of 42 and 66. So I'm thinking about my times tables, and I can see that if you want to halve it first, you can, but the highest factor that goes into both 42 and 66 is 6. So I'm going to do 6 outside the brackets, and then 6 times 7 is 42. 6 times, and I need to do the minus, so I've got to get to 66. That's going to give me minus 11x. 11x times 6 would be 66x. For this type of question, you don't need any further working than that. But for these, I would like to see some working. This one's a bit easier, just 2 and 2 plus 3x. Question 5. So I'm going to take away 3 from both sides. Okay, now this is going to give you 6x equals 15. Now that's not, because that doesn't go in as a whole number, this is how I want you to work it out. You're just going to divide both sides by 6. Now when you divide 15 by 6, you're not going to get a whole number. You're going to get 15 over 6. So that's what, and I can just then change that to a mixed number. So how many 6's go into 15? It's 2. That makes 12. I've got 3 left over. So 2 and 3/6, which is the same as 2 1/2. So quite a bit of working for that one. There's a couple of different ways of doing question 6. I could expand the brackets out first, or I could divide it by the 5 first. So I'm going to divide both sides by 5. So that's going to get rid of the fact that I've got 4x take away 5 all multiplied by 5. So if I divide both sides by 5, this side here stays as 4x minus 5, and this side here is 155 divided by 5. So how many 5's go into 155? Well, 10 5's would be 50, so 20 5's is 100, 30 5's is 150, this would be 31 5's. And then I'm going to finish this equation. So 4x minus 5 equals 31. I'm going to add 5 to both sides. That gives me 4x equals 36. Now this time it is going to divide exactly. So when I divide both sides by 4, 36 divided by 4 is going to give you 9. So these solving equations ones are ones which, you know, in general I think people have struggled with, particularly when you're not getting a whole number answer. Just going to give you guys a moment. Question 7. 540 is a product of prime factors. I'm going to turn the page in this direction just because it's going to be, I've got to try to squeeze in a factor tree here. So I've got 540 and I'm going to split out the factors until I get to prime numbers. So I just do 54 times by 10. 10 then splits into 5 times by 2. Those are prime numbers, but the 54 is not. If I've got an even number, I can always split out to 2. So I can always halve it. So I've got 2 there. 54 divided by 2 is going to give you 27. 27 is not prime because it's 9 times by 3. 3 is prime, 9 is not. But 9 is 3 times 3, and then I've got all the prime numbers. So I'm going to see I've got 2 times 2, which I can write as 2 squared. I've got 3 times 3 times 3. I've got 3 3's, so that's times by 3 cubed. And then I've got just a 5, so times by 5. I'm going to do the same thing for our next question, where we've got 432. So we're going to have to start splitting out. Now, again, if it's an even number, might be a good idea just to halve it to start with. Not the easiest number to halve, but half of 400 is 200, half of 32 is 16, so it's 216. 2 is prime, so I'm going to circle that one. Again, it's 216 is a number I can halve. Okay, 216, we've got half of 200 is 100, half of 16 would be 8, so you could split this into 108 and 2. 2 is prime. If you can halve it, just keep going with this. So 108 will split out into 54 and 2. Again, 2 is prime. 54 will split out into 26 and 2. 27 and 2 rather. 27 and 2. And 27 is 9 times 3. And then I've got 9, which is 3 times 3. So I'm going to count up the number of 2's. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, so it's 2 to the power 4. And I've got 3's, 1, 2, 3 3's, so times by 3 to the power 3. Question 9, I've got to work out the median here. So they're not in order. So the first job is to put them in order. So start with the smallest, 8's the lowest. I'm just going to cross it off so I can see I've done that one. Next 15. Next 17. Next 18. Next 19. Next 21. So I'm just putting them in order. Now the median is in the middle. But if it's an even amount of numbers, so I've got 6 numbers, the middle is going to be halfway here between the third and the fourth. So it will here be 17.5. Go on to the next one. So this one, again, put in order. 2, 3, I've got 2 5's, and I've got an 80. Now this time I've got an odd amount of numbers, so the median is just the middle of those ones, which is 5. Oh, it's the mean for this. Thank you very much. So mean I've got to add up and then divide by how many there are. So read the question carefully. Thank you for that. Okay, 5, 10, 15, 95. Divided by 5 numbers that there are, and that's going to come to 19. Question 11. Okay, 5 squared is 25. Do that bit first. Use your BIDMAS rules. Okay, so I'm doing the brackets, but within the brackets I've got this indices bit. So I've got to think about my BIDMAS rules. So I've got this situation. I've done this 5 squared. I've got to make sure that this brackets here is done before I multiply it. So 8 plus 25 is going to come to 33. And then I've got 2 times 33, which is 66. Same thing here. 3 squared is 9. Make sure we're doing the brackets. So 6 plus 9 is 15. And I've got 12 times by 15. So 10 times by 15 would be 150. 2 times 15 is 30. So 150 plus 30, 180. Okay, question 13. 16 divided by 0.1. Now, I think we had this type in the previous set of homeworks. So, if you've got this, you can use an equivalent fraction. Change it into a fraction with a whole number by multiplying both the top and the bottom by 10. That does not change the value. It becomes 160 divided by 1. Those are equivalent. Those are exactly the same thing, so I'm not going to have to do any adjusting afterwards. It is just 160. And it's the same thing with this one. 8.1 divided by 0.9. Change it into whole numbers by multiplying them both by 10. That's going to give me 81 divided by 9, which is just 9. Those are equivalent fractions, so because they're equivalent, it means they're equal to each other. We don't have to make any adjustments afterwards. When we're multiplying in that kind of situation, we do. When we're dividing here, we're not going to need to. Make x the subject. This one's nice and easy. Just take a away from both sides. Making a letter the subject means you want that on its own on one side. So that's going to mean I've got x on its own on one side. On this side, I've got y take away a. Question 16. I need x on its own on one side. So at the moment it's a times by x. To undo that, I need to divide both sides by a. If I divide both sides by a, I've got y divided by a equals x. The x is on its own on one side. That means it's the subject of the formula. Let's divide by a on both sides. Question 17. 20% as a fraction in its lowest form. 20% means 20 out of 100. So 20 out of 100 is the same as 2 out of 10, is the same as 1 out of 5, 1/5. Express this as a percentage. A percentage is out of 100. So I had to times that one by 4. I'm timesing the top by 4. 20 out of 100, 20%. Question 19. So you have to remember back to our work on graphs. Y equals mx plus c. The m part, that's your gradient. The plus c part, that's where it crosses the y-axis. Now here, it's not plus, it's minus. So it's going to be like plus minus 1. So it's at minus 1. If you want a coordinate, that's 0 minus 1, because that's on the y-axis. And here, we've got minus 10. Or 0 minus 10 if it's a coordinate.